Hi, I'm Sean Mullen, and I'm a storyboard artist on Open Season 2. We made the film on computers, but we still had to draw the characters quite a bit. I'm going to go ahead and show you an easy, fun way to draw Fifi, Boog, and Elliot. So if you want to run off and get some paper and pencils, then come on back and we'll get started. We're drawing Fifi here, and we start off first with a big square for his head. And we're going to do him running along, so the square is going to kind of be bending back in the wind. From there, we'll just go into putting his little outstretched front paws. They're just these simple little 2 lines, just that and that. And then we can let this line just go straight back into his body and into his back leg. Then very simply, all we have to do for his body, it's just his little bum sticking out here. It's just a little arc like that. Throw his little tail on. And now we've got some of the basic structure already of his body here. He's always wearing this little shirt. So we give him his collar here. We can make some little adjustments every now and then as you go. Little back of his shirt, little sleeves. Then we work on his face here a little bit. Now that we have the basic idea of where the body's all fitting in here well, we can just do a little circle to indicate where the face is going to be. And then we can put in a couple lines to help us figure out where the eyes and the nose are going to be. The eyes tend to rest on this one line that just comes across this circle here. Now, Fifi was always mad, so it's pretty easy to draw his eyes. First, we'll just put in his little nose. His eyes, he always had this little angry brow when I would draw him. And you just put in his little indications of his eyes. Fill them in real quick with some darkness. Of course, he's always running along, barking and yapping. So just a big C shape, backwards C shape for his mouth. And we can just put in some quick little teeth. And you're starting to see him come together now. And he's got these little fluffy ears. There you go. Just a nice little smooth loop. And this ear can be flying off the back there. And he always had his little bow on his head. So all of these things are just very simple, quick little shapes. Just a couple lines here and there, just enough to give you an idea of what needs to be there. So one of the other things, he always had his shirt on, but he had this collar that looked kind of like a little necklace. You know, he's a tough little dog, but he's also like a little show dog, so he's always all dressed up. And this is just a bunch of little circles, and you've got an indication of his collar. All right, so one of the finishing touches on Fifi was giving him his little trademark fluffy hair. If you're using a pencil, make sure it's nice and sharpened up for this one, because we want a little bit of a thinner line. We just go over everywhere that would be exposed hair with a little squiggly like that. And it comes out making him look nice and fluffy. The very fun thing about Fifi is that he's probably about the cutest character in the film, and he's the most diabolical and scary. So that was a fun contrast to have with him. Well, usually the contrast between how cute and cuddly he is and his personality is in his face. Like if you look at this drawing without his face, he's a cute little fluffy dog. But then you see his face, and he's like a ravaging, like angry, toothy, mad-faced little guy. And you can add some of that little cute fur here to sort of accent even more of that furrowed brow. Something else that helps make him look angry is putting little bags under his eyes. Helps just give him a finished look if you darken in a few things. You want to leave a little white highlight in there so it looks like he has a wet nose that's maybe glistening in the sun just a little bit. And we can shade in his mouth just a little. And even while we're getting into details here and everything is still a very simple shape, you know, like this fur goes across in basically a straight line. This mouth comes down in basically a straight line. And then just fill in a little shading in his shirt to make it pop out a little bit from his fur. And I tend to, this drawing is still kind of rough. And when you're doing storyboards, they're always kind of rough because you have hundreds of drawings to do to get across what's happening in the story. So you have to figure out ways to draw the character quick and simple that get across his emotion, his action, everything very, very clearly and very quickly. So that's basically how Fifi would look just running along angry. It's time to draw Elliot. Elliot's an interesting design. He's a little bit more complicated than some of the others because he's tall and thin and lanky, and it's easy to get kind of complicated with his drawing. So we're gonna sort of break it down in a nice simple way here. As with most characters, I'm gonna start with just a nice loose little circle to indicate where his skull's gonna be. Little starting idea about where the eyes might rest on the skull. Now, Elliot's always way more confident than he should be, so we're gonna put him in a nice, proud, confident pose. We're gonna start going in and working out where his muzzle sort of is. I tended to have it just kind of hanging down for some reason, even though he isn't like that in the film a lot. It gets across his attitude, something about this nose down, and as we go along, his ears will be down and stuff. Gets across his attitude very well. We'll go in and just rough in where his eyes are. His big bulbous nose. And like Fifi, put little bags under his eyes. The little bags under his eyes with Elliot, they're very different personalities, and yet somehow that gets across. And somehow, even though it's the same thing, bags under the eyes, it still gets across a different feeling with him, that he's just overly hyper and maybe a little like amped up on coffee or something. Gives him that sort of worn out hyper look. So we're already starting to see his head come together. Now, he was also so overly excited that I tended to just draw his mouth wherever it was fun to draw it. So a lot of times it's even just coming off sideways off his head. Put a little tongue in there. Now, to help make him look proud, we're gonna have his chest out, so that's just his body coming out underneath him. And let's say he's making some big important point in his mind. So we'll start drawing a simple arm. You can draw just a nice sweeping curve here. This is his thumb roughed in. Maybe he's pointing, like making a really good clear point, or in his case, an unclear point. And we rough in the arm with the elbow by just a couple nice little straight lines that work into each other that way. Have his other arm just kind of hanging down there. Then we'll, his ears are always a little bit awkward. It's always hard to figure out exactly where to put them. So you just kind of put them wherever they look good. Maybe just kind of hanging out from behind his mouth here. Maybe a little indication of the other one over there. But we'll keep it nice and simple like that. Of course, he has the one antler and then the one broken one here. So it's his left antler, that's the broken one. So that's always just this little nubbin. The right antler, just do some quick, simple little indication. It doesn't have to be fancy or anything, but Almost looks like a little W. Just gives you an idea of the antler up there. And like with all the other characters, I like to go in and do a little bit of shading here and there to help give some volume and get different things to pop out a little bit more, like his nose here. I'll just sort of indicate where the highlight's going to be on the nose. And darken in the whole thing. Okay, so just doing that, and we've had now the nose really pops out nice and clear. We can even make that highlight a little bigger by erasing a little bit of that shading we just did. Darken in the mouth a little bit. And select a little bit of a lighter color to shade in the tongue a little, make that stand out in the mouth. And of course his fingers are actually hooves, so they're dark little hooves too. Helps bring attention to the fact that he's, doing his point, making his super important Elliot point. And then lastly, we'll just go in and do a little shading on the body just to give us a little more volume, sort of show where things are overlapping each other. A little under the eyes to accent those tired little eyes that he's got. And this shading doesn't have to be perfect. It's not like, this isn't a technical drawing. This is just a drawing to give us a quick, rough idea of the character's mood and attitude. And there's Crazy Elliot with his mouth coming off the side of his head. So let's try drawing Boog. He's actually a very simple character to draw, at least the way I draw him. So we're going to do his whole body. He's basically just a big sack because he's a big, fat 900-pound bear. We're going to start with his head again, but the difference with Boog from all the other characters is that he has a tiny head because he's so big. It helps make him look bigger when you just give him, so that's going to be the size of his head, really. Then from there, I tend to come off with his cheek coming out to the front. Draw his cheek coming out the front here, a little fur as we come around. Then come with this will be the back of his head. Goes straight down into his back. And that right there is already the overall shape of his head and body. Now we'll go start filling it in where you can really tell what we're doing here. One of the things that helps really show the direction he's facing is drawing in his nose pointing a certain way. We'll just have him looking sort of straight in front of him, in front of himself here. His nose is really just a little triangle like that, actually kind of big triangle on him. And because his nose is a flat plane and it's facing this way, that's why we have a little bit of a shorter line here and these two a little longer. So it gives you a little bit more of the direction that it's pointing in. Start giving an indication where his eyes are. I just do little simple black button eyes with him. A couple little quick, simple ears. He's a pretty happy-go-lucky guy, so we'll just have him smiling. Give a little indication of a chin. I don't know why, I always like to give just a little wrinkle there at the top of his belly. Now, one of the fun things with Boog is that he's this big, fat guy with tiny little legs. So we're just going to rough in these little legs. It's just like a little line like that, drawing his little feet with his little claws, and that's his leg. Same over on this side. You got this big giant guy with tiny little legs and feet. His arms, though, I tend to do nice and big with the little hanging fat off the bottom of them. There's just his little claw and his, do this as a little wrinkle where the arm bends. And that wrinkle actually helps make it feel like there's a lot of loose skin there, and his heavy, thick arms hanging down. We'll have him waving at someone. Just have that arm up. And there we have Boog's basic body. We'll put in a little indication of his tongue. And with Boog, I always tended to actually color him in more fully than any of the other characters I would draw, because he's a big, kind of dark brown bear, and it would help set him apart from some of the other characters. So we'll go ahead and fill him in with like a nice sort of medium, sort of gray tone. Go a little darker for his nose. Can keep it nice and rough and loose, because doing the story drawings is more about getting across the character's personality and their mood than it is about doing a perfect technical drawing. And I think he looks kind of fun as just sort of a rough illustration. And he's got his dark little claws too. Then we can just give him a little highlight on his nose. And so that's basically how I would draw Boog in my storyboards.